Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And I am very excited to be joined by the one and only.
Thanks for having me. I cut you off with my own introduction, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Elizabeth.
No worries at all. I'm excited to have you here as well and to have you on 20 questions because it's been really fun to kind of get to know a different side of people. And I know we've spoken before, but you have no idea what I'm going to ask you. So I think that it's going to make for a very intriguing episode. I promise nothing too crazy, but I think it will be fun. So let's just dive right into it. You guys know the drill. I'm going to do some getting to know Jimmy, a teensy bit about football, and then some just silly questions that I think are fun to ask.
I feel like I'm on the hot seat here. I don't know what's coming.
I know, because you don't know what to expect, but I promise it's nothing bad. I promise. So first question, and I think this is an easy one. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Great question. So I wanted to be a math teacher. I thought that the teachers that I had in this particular subject, I think you guys call it maths over there. You add an S to it. They weren't very fun. And I thought that there could be room for somebody that had a little bit more personality in teaching this particular subject. And I was drawn to math. I was a mathematics major in college. And nobody thinks I'm that smart, but maybe I'm not. I was all just pretend. But I thought that that's what I wanted to do. And then I maybe coach a little bit in high school or something, so teach and coach at the high school level. But then I ended up being a professional footballer for many years, and now I do media stuff. And so I actually haven't gotten back to doing what I always thought I was going to do and what I thought I'd be good at, but maybe one day I'll get there.
That's super interesting. I minored in math, so we kind of
kindred spirits here. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I know why we're friends, of course.
That's super interesting. This is why I love this, because I would have never pegged that for you. Never. But not to say that I don't see it, because I think you could be a really cool math teacher as well.
Thank you.
But moving right along here, what does a perfect day look like for Jimmy Conrad?
Wow. I guess it kind of depends on which phase of life you're talking about. When I was younger, I was hanging out with my friends, kicking the ball around, maybe going to a game in person. I guess it kind of depends on that. If I was dating a girl or my eventual wife, there's obviously a whole nother set of what a perfect day looks like with regard to that. Now I'm a dad, I got a couple kids, so it all kind of just depends. But I would say right now, I went on an individual level, I went on one of the best trips that I could have ever gone on. I had an opportunity about 3 years ago to go to Munich and do this Bundesliga team of the season release with EA Sports with Lothar Matthäus, who is one of, a handful of people that's played in 5 World Cups on the men's side. The guy's an absolute legend. So I got to hang with Lothar Matthäus for 4 or 5 hours, and we had a great time. I feel like I'm friends with Lothar Matthäus now, which is kind of crazy to say out loud because I used to look up to that guy when I was younger. The next day was a Champions League semifinal in Madrid between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. It was leg 2. And that was the one where Manuel Neuer wasn't in, and Marcelo got the handball, but they didn't call it. Anyway, I flew down to Madrid. I said, hey, EA, if I'll pay for my own flight, can you get me a ticket to the game? They said, absolutely. So I go and I catch the second leg, and I'm there at the Bernabeu. Unbelievable. Great seats. Just having an absolute thrill. Well, the next day in Rome was Roma-Liverpool Champions League semifinal leg 2. I'm like, hey, I know some people that work for Roma. Hey, if I can get to Rome, can you get me in? They're like, yeah, we'll get you a media credential. So I fly to Rome and get a media credential and go and see Roma-Liverpool. Liverpool ended up getting to the final. That was the 2018 year where Liverpool and Madrid played and Gareth Bale scored, and Karius had an absolute shocker. I didn't get to go to the final, unfortunately. But then after that semifinal, I had a round trip to Madrid. So I flew back to Madrid, and it was the second leg between Arsenal and Atletico Madrid in the Europa League semifinals. And I went to all 3 of those games. I got to hang with Lothar Matthäus on the Monday, and it was the best week of all time. Now, the only sad part was I didn't have any loved ones with me. I didn't have any of my friends. And I vlogged the whole thing, and it was super cool to do that because I got to bring people along with me. But I was by myself. So as much as I like have the best week on an individual level, it would have been nice to share that with somebody that I loved.
Aw, that's really sweet. That is a crazy week. I
What a
don't think
week
there's
though, huh?
yeah, that is
I was
crazy.
listen, I was jealous of myself. I'm like, this can't be real. This is the most unbelievable trip of all time.
That's insane, insane. I went to the quarterfinals and the ticket prices were like through the roof, and I was like, I'm cutting myself off here, like for the semis, no way. But
That's when
moving
you gotta know people at EA Sports. You gotta know people at the clubs.
I
You're
know,
working.
I know.
Listen,
You gotta hook me up
listen.
next
I
time,
saw
Jimmy.
you on the fields, okay, with Chelsea. I know with FA. I understand. You're connected. Don't try to act like you're not.
Oh my god! Well, that was like my most memorable day. That was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I Christian Pulisic actually walked right in front of me, and I was wearing a Pulisic jersey, and I was like, oh my god. Like,
Did he sign it? Did you say anything?
no, I didn't want to like distract him because it was right before the game, and he looked like in the zone. So I was
Yeah,
just like,
sure.
yeah,
Got it.
you know.
No. That's you made the right decision. Yeah, you don't want to distract him.
Yeah. So, moving right along, what has been the most memorable day of your professional career? And it doesn't have to be the best, it just the most memorable.
You know, I would say that when I got named to the World Cup roster in 2006, that was probably the most memorable day because of all the support and love that I received once that announcement came out. And the fact that I didn't know that I was going to be on the roster until that day.
Uh,
Yeah, so for whatever reason, we have Sports Center over here, and our head coach at the time, Bruce Arena, went on Sports Center to name the roster. And I hadn't heard one way or the other whether I was on. Now, in hindsight, if I wasn't going to be on the roster, they probably would have let me know, like called me and said, hey, listen, sorry about it. You know, they were going to like break your hearts on TV. So I probably should have cued into that. I haven't heard from them, so I'm probably a lock, but I didn't know. But I had Landon Donovan, who was entrenched, you know, obviously one of our best players of all time. And we're good friends. And there's I don't know if you guys have Geico over in Europe, but there's Geico Insurance. And one of the commercials is, oh my God, just forgot the punchline, but it's like,
say
yeah,
15 minutes.
yeah, I got some great news. Yeah, he's like, hey, dude, I got some great news. And I was like, oh, what is it? He's like, I just saved a bunch of money on my insurance by switching to Geico. Like I thought he was talking about the US roster, and he totally teed me up. And then he switched it and just made a big joke. I should have known then that I was probably on as well, but I still didn't know until it was out there and it was official. So he was teasing me a couple hours before and being a total dick. And I didn't hear from the staff, so that's a good thing if you don't hear from them, because they would have told you otherwise if you're on the bubble. And I learned that in 2010 when I didn't make the team, and I got told that a couple of days before they announced it. So that was a big thrill for me. So when I got named to the team and it's on national television, the outpouring of support, all the people that believed in me along the way, it really validated their belief. And so it validated my own belief in myself. So I obviously have done some very cool things on the fields, but nobody saw the struggle, the sacrifice, the tears, the plenty of times I got told I wasn't good enough, I'd never be a professional. And when you get that type of thing, not that you feel like there's going to be a lot of anger attached, but I had to give it a moment where when I got named to the team, it was the biggest middle finger to all the haters. And it was so refreshing and satisfying. And then you kind of get past that and you just want to celebrate the positivity of the news. But there was a moment where just like, you give them one of these, you give them the two, and what's also cool about being named to a World Cup team is they can never take it away from you. They can say, they can right now, they can talk shit. Oh, I'm an American Yank. I don't know the game, blah, blah, blah. I don't have the right accent. I didn't grow up in the right areas. But at the end of the day, I played in a World Cup and a lot of these people haven't. And they can't take that away from me. They can say whatever they want, but I actually proved that I could get there and hold my own when I got to play. And that's like the coolest thing I could say, and that I have. It just gives me instant credibility.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine the feeling. And I imagine like in the moment you don't want to believe it until it actually happens, because you don't want to get your hopes. At least that's how I
Exactly
am.
right.
I'm like, I don't want to get
Of
my
course.
hopes up in case it doesn't happen. But that must have been so
Ah,
incredible. Yeah,
I
I
was,
can't.
I mean, I don't think there's ever been a moment in my life where it felt like I was walking on clouds. And
Oh,
when you get that information for the next couple hours, you just, to your point, you can't believe it. And I had only been married for a couple of years. So you're just looking at your wife and you're like, this, I can't believe this, and because she'd seen the struggle, she'd seen all the stuff behind the scenes. She'd been all the adversity and watched me fight through it. And it was rewarding for everybody. It was fantastic.
oh. So kind of transitioning a bit. Question number 4. We're moving right along, but talking about your playing career, who would you say is the toughest player that you've ever played against?
Well, I've got to play when I feel very grateful for these opportunities. Played against Leo Messi. That guy, you just can't. He plays forward. He doesn't look. He runs forward. He plays forward. And he plays so fast. It was really. I caught him when he was about 19 or 20, so he wasn't as let's say as evolved, if that's even possible, because it was clear that he was a genius back then. But he's even gotten craftier, I'd say, and smarter over the years. But I that was incredible. But he wasn't really in my area. I mean, I'd be around him every once in a while. But in terms of straight matchups, I got to play against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, and it was the Galacticos. So I played against R9 Ronaldo. And I learned a lot in those 90 minutes about how to gain advantages, how to be efficient in your movements. And not only that, I mean, have R9 Ronaldo, and then you got Zidane and Beckham and Roberto Carlos passing him the ball, and Raul's his partner. And you just, the amount of things that you have to think about to shut him down and to make the game at least predictable for you and make it hard for him. But if you try to take away one thing, those guys are so good at taking advantage and exploiting what you do provide. So if I'm trying to take away, his right foot, R9 Ronaldo, they'll just find a way to set him up with his left, or they'll find that one little gap. It's incredible. When you see a world-class player, it what world-class looks like when you actually get to that level. So that was a big thrill for me. And to be able to test myself against some of the best players in the world, and at times, have some success against them is incredibly rewarding as a player, and kind of validates again that you are doing what you were set out to do, and now you have this moment. But he still scored two goals, R9 Ronaldo. I mean, I feel like his quads are bigger than my whole body. That guy's just an absolute unit. And we gave him 2 half chances, and he hit like side netting on both. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this guy. Both feet, one was left, one was right. It was ridiculous. So it was a big thrill for that. But R9 Ronaldo, I played against Miroslav Klose. Obviously, he's got more World Cup goals than anybody else. He's difficult in different ways. He's a little bit more crafty in creating space in the box. So all of a sudden the ball goes wide, and you're like, where did Miroslav Klose go? I mean, it's unbelievable how he pulls away from you. And even if you think you're watching him, he's so good at like getting out of that sight line where you can't look at the ball and him at the same time. And then once you lose him, you're dead. So, different guys had different skill sets, but I felt like R9 Ronaldo was the most complete player I had ever played against.
I could imagine, like, after that game, it's just so, like, mentally and physically draining after thinking about where you need to position yourself and
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. But
I mean, Elizabeth, also you're on the field and you're going like, I can't believe I'm on the field with these guys. Because, it's very similar. Even if you're out, next to doing Christian Pulisic stuff at FA Cup final, you're like, I can't believe he's right there, and
that's exactly. I was like,
he's right there.
And because I need to be professional. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, there's Thomas Tuchel. He's like, wow, he's like 17 times taller than I thought. And there's, you get to see all these people that you've kind of just seen in websites or on TV, and then they're there. And now imagine playing against those guys. I mean, you're like, oh, now I actually have to solve problems. I have to kind of let go of being a fan of Zidane and R9 Ronaldo and Beckham and all these guys. And I need to shut them down. I need to kind of be a jerk or an asshole and figure out ways to make the game difficult for them. And obviously try to figure out ways to have success for my own team.
That must be so difficult, because I was struggling just to like keep my mouth shut and not be a fan when I saw
right
them.
exactly.
But I can't even imagine. But going back to football, your playing career, if you could go back in time, it doesn't have to be like a game that you played in, or maybe it's just a game that you're a fan of. But if you could go back in time and change one result for a game, which game would it be? I didn't find this question on the internet. I thought of it myself.
No, that's a great one. There was a game. So we needed to beat in the World Cup in 2006. We had to beat Ghana in our last group stage game to advance, and we would have played Brazil in the round of 16. We got hosed. Probably the worst penalty, one of the worst penalties I've seen of all time. And if VAR had existed back then, I think it would have been overturned, or I'm almost positive it would have been overturned. It's such a bad call. Anyway, that happened right before halftime. We had equalized after going down, so we had a little bit of momentum coming back in at 1-1. But they get that right before halftime. It's 2-1. Our heads go down. We don't really fight in the way that, at that point, Ghana's putting everybody back behind the ball and looking to counter, and we just couldn't solve or unlock their defense, and we hit the post, but it wasn't enough. I wish we would have won that game. To be able to advance and to play Brazil in a World Cup would have been incredibly special. I mean, obviously, getting out of the group is difficult in itself. We were in the group of death that particular World Cup with Czech Republic when they had Rosicky and Nedved and Jan Koller up at top. If everybody remembers him from Borussia Dortmund, he's like 7'2", and he scored on us in the first 3 minutes. And then we had Italy, who ended up winning World Cup, and we had Ghana. So it was a very, very tough group, and it would have been cool to had advanced and kind of build off of the 2002 World Cup, where we had gotten to the quarterfinals and lost to Germany. So yeah, that one hurt a little bit, and I wish if there was any result we could have changed, it would have been that one.
That's a really interesting one. Maybe we will see the US outside of the group stages this year.
Well, you know what? After we take down England, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm like, if we beat England, so like everybody must call it soccer.
yes, at least for a year.
Yeah, at least for a year. I'm very much looking forward to that one. And I think it takes place around Thanksgiving as well.
Yes, the day after Thanksgiving, November 25th.
Yeah, I won't be in the US at that time, I don't think, but I will still be celebrating Thanksgiving and watching. So kind of moving into current football and our teams. You support Newcastle. So I want to know, where do you think Chelsea and Newcastle are going to finish in the table next season? And obviously we don't have so much information right now.
Sure.
At the time of recording, no transfers have been made. There's no transfer news. So
I think, I'll start with Chelsea first. I think that there's some question marks. Losing Rudiger is a big loss. If Christensen ends up going to Barcelona or makes a move, Azpilicueta, you start to lose some key components to your back line. Whatever you think about those particular players, they still understood how to play in Tuchel's system. And when you go get somebody new, there's going to be a period where they have to just get indoctrinated into how the team moves together as a group and how he wants them to move individually. So there's going to be some transition. I know the Romelu Lukaku stuff needs to get sorted out as well, if at all. Christian Pulisic, from a U.S. perspective, is he going to make the move? Is he going to stay? Is Dembele coming in? I mean, there's just so many question marks around Chelsea. I think top four for Chelsea for sure. But with Haaland coming into Man City, Liverpool's got to figure out their own stuff. But even if they lose a Mane or a Salah, they still have Luis Diaz, who's been fantastic. And I'm not too worried about Liverpool's dropping off per se. So it seems like Chelsea finishing third, maybe scraping right behind for second in first and second is possible. But they really got to figure out a couple things. And with the new ownership group, I think they're okay. They just got a lot of questions that need to get answered. And that goes with the renovations of Stamford Bridge, and there's just so much. So I wish Todd Bowley and the ownership group all the best. Now, from Newcastle's perspective, obviously we had a tremendous second half of the season. Eddie Howe really pressed the right buttons. I actually thought they made a couple good and smart signings. Trippier, you had Dan Burn, you had Matty Target, Bruno Guimaraes, obviously Joe Linton, putting him back in a more of a central midfield spot. When Callum Wilson came back and is healthy, obviously he knows how to score goals in the Premier League. ASM, I mean, we got a solid team, but I think you got to add a few more pieces. So I'm kind of curious to see where they go and try to identify this talent and where I given how strong they finished last season and given kind of the positive vibes, I'm crying real tears of oil over here, Elizabeth, as we try to solve some of our problems. But just from a sporting perspective, I think that a Conference League spot, definitely in the top 10, but I don't think a Conference League spot is outside of the realm of possibility. It just depends on the signings, and I just don't know exactly. I mean, there's rumors, of course, and upgrading at center back, goalkeeper. I mean, we could probably upgrade in every line of the field. So trying to find that, creating a little bit more depth so that we can compete in more games and in more competitions, I think is important as well. So we start to be more of a threat domestically in the League Cup and FA Cup. So yeah, I guess the overall thing would be top 10, but I'm hopeful that maybe we could scrape into the Conference League, even though I think that's going to be extremely difficult with Arsenal obviously getting a little bit better, Tottenham with Conte, West Ham, David Moyes has been fantastic. Everton, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Everton. But I mean, they've usually, Aston Villa obviously has made some big signings already early on. So I don't know if the Conference League is a realistic, but I think it's worth dreaming for and hoping that we can achieve that.
Well, I think I don't remember what the exact stat was, but at some point Newcastle had won gotten the most points from their games out of almost any team in the Premier League. They were on an incredible run of form, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all.
No, I agree. I thank you for saying that. I'm going to bottle up your optimism and keep it with me. I would say that because how Aston Villa has made some really good signings, I think that with a proper summer for Gerrard, he can start to really continue to put his fingerprints over the team and get a better understanding. They seem to have dropped off after that initial manager bump with Gerrard there. West Ham, I wonder, if they lose Declan Rice, they're just not going to be the same team. They're not going to be as vibrant, I think. Yeah, so they've got some questions that and they're a team that if all of a sudden a couple players start playing well, that those players are going to get purchased by the bigger clubs. So it's going to be interesting. I think what's kind of cool though is I think the Premier League is potentially moving away from a top 6 and starting to get into more of a top 8.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then you have the teams like a Leicester or Wolves or any of those types that are popping in, and I assume Everton's going to rebound potentially in some capacity. We'll see if they make any signings. Their back line was kind of in a shambles last year, but they survived, so we'll see. And I'm pulling for Jesse Marsh and Leeds, of course, as an American. So, but I don't think they'll get top 10. It's going to be a fascinating summer, I think, for all these clubs, and then obviously the season next year, especially with the World Cup in the middle of it, is going to.
Yeah, that's literally what I was just going to say. Like if the World Cup being in the middle of the season affects any of the teams or players, because it's a lot of games, of course, as well.
It is
for them to play. One Chelsea question for you, because I must. Lukaku, does he stay this season, or do we see him with another team?
It's a shame that whole move. It felt like Tuchel never really was bought in on the move. It felt like that was coming from the board or the transfer gurus or whatever. And obviously there was some energy from Lukaku at the time, because I don't think he had all the information about the future of Inter Milan and what it looked like. Now, I think they had to sell him to kind of keep things afloat, and they made some smart business decisions to kind of at least be competitive last season, even though they ended up losing the Scudetto to Milan. It's tough. It feels like Lukaku back to Inter, if it could work out for all parties, might be in his best interest, though I think it might take him a few months to win over the fans again in Inter Milan. It doesn't seem like it's a good fit for Tuchel. Now, if Tuchel decides to go somewhere else, a new manager comes in, then maybe Lukaku starts to fall back into place. But this isn't really isolated to Lukaku. I mean, he couldn't really make it work with Tammy Abraham, who obviously had a tremendous season with Roma. Giroud seemed to be not necessarily the guy, even though before Tuchel showed up, he scored 4 goals in a game against Sevilla in the Champions League. It's and then Havertz is kind of hit or miss. Timo Werner's hit or miss. So it's almost like is a number 9 the best fit, a proper number 9 the best fit for the system that Tuchel wants to run? I mean, that's probably a bigger question in its own video in itself.
Yep, that's exactly what I was just going to say as well. It seems that maybe a number 9 doesn't fit the system, and that we've seen it kind of work, at its best with a Kai Havertz playing in that position. Mm-hmm. But like you said, TBD on that one. Which team do you think is going to be the dark horse of the Premier League next? Or I was going to say next season, but I guess this upcoming season.
Oh, wow. It's hard. I don't know if there's any dark horses. I don't think we're going to see a Leicester City win the Premier League.
Oh, that was incredible.
Incredible. I just don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, just based on the amount of money that some of the top clubs can spend and how smart and efficient they're getting with their signings. It's Liverpool, obviously, great transfer business.
Changing the question.
Yeah, change it then. Yeah.
Okay. Which team do you think will be like surprising? So, for example, for me this season, Everton. Never in a million years saw them being in a relegation race. So it could be for top of the table or bottom of the table.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. I don't think. I guess my question I throw to you is if Newcastle makes a run and gets into the Conference League, would that be big of a surprise? I mean, I think everybody expects it. So I guess maybe my potential dark horse is Aston Villa maybe getting a Europa League spot. Not getting top 4, nothing crazy like that, but kind of pushing somebody else out. Actually, I haven't even brought up Manchester United. I named all these other teams and didn't even bring up Manchester United. I think that I'm very curious about Eric Ten Hag and what United are going to do. It still feels like a bit of a transition because you have Cristiano Ronaldo who, okay, you have one more year with him. It's hard to plan for the future if you still have to work around him. Now, obviously, the guy still bangs in the goals and is a top professional, and I'm sure his mentality and mindset are contagious, or at least can lead the way as what it takes to be a winner and a leader. But I don't know. This Man United season could be interesting. I don't think it'll be worse than they did last year. So I don't know. I think Villa could have an outside chance to maybe make a run, just because they aren't in Europe. They can only focus on the domestic stuff, and I think that gives them an advantage over some of the other teams. United, God, it's gonna be so competitive. I really feel like we've kind of moved into a top 8. So maybe on the back end of it, I could see Everton struggling again. Frankly, I think that Frank Lampfraud, as I like to call him, though I honestly, if they're struggling, if they're struggling leading into the World Cup, I could see him getting sacked before the World Cup happens. So that would give the next manager a little bit of time and a transfer window to kind of change it in the second half. So I could see Everton struggling again, which I don't know, might not be a surprise for many, but it would be for me.
Good answer. So moving on. Silly questions. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we've actually been talking for 27 minutes and have gotten through 8 questions.
I'll be shorter in my answers.
And we have 12 left. For me, it's perfect, but in case you have any time limit, but let's get into it. What are your pet peeves?
Wow, how much time actually do we have? So pet peeves. I think that when people don't follow through on what they say they're going to do is a bit of a pet peeve for me, where they talk a lot of talk, and that's fine, but you got to be able to back it up. And it doesn't have to be these big overarching, hey, I put it on Twitter or Instagram and whatever. That's important too if you're really going to put it out there publicly, but it even can be little things. Like if you say to your parents, you say to your friends, you say to your loved ones, I'm going to do this, you got to follow through. And I think that helps create good habits and disciplines that will serve you well for the rest of your life. So when people don't follow through, it's hard for me to want to associate myself with people that talk but don't act. And even though they might have good intentions, the follow through is really where the magic is.
No, 100% agree on that one. I'm trying to think what mine is. I feel like I have a
yeah, it's tough. But that's the one that jumped into my brain, and in an effort to be a little quicker. That's all.
That makes sense. No, you take all the time you need, Jimmy Conrad.
I appreciate that.
I'm loving it. What's your most watched movie?
Wow. I guess if we're harkening back to when I was a kid, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, I watched a lot of Star Wars. And then, as you get older, you start to move into like the Goonies. Goonies was so cool back in the day because all those guys were on the, wild adventure. If you haven't seen the Goonies, I mean, do yourself a favor and watch Goonies. And Princess Bride is an absolute classic. And then you go through, you get a little older and you find some dumb comedies that you and your buddies love. So Dumb and Dumber is like an instant classic. But there was one movie in particular called Rushmore, one of Wes Anderson's early films. He had Bottle Rocket was number 1 and Rushmore was his second. And there's something about the main character, Max Fisher, that I just was compelled to cheer for, that I related to. And ultimately, as I scale, but he's kind of a dick in some ways, but when he made a decision to do something, he committed with everything that he had, which actually kind of ties into my pet peeve as well. I'm going to do this, and I don't know if it's going to work out for me or not. There's so much unknown to what's going to happen when I commit, but I'm going to give it everything that I have. And I feel like I've approached life the same way, and it's bore incredible fruit for me. And I've had some tremendous life experiences because I just let go of the fear and the insecurity and just went for it, knowing I was going to make mistakes. And that was something similar to the main character, Max Fisher. And so I always watched it over and over and over because it just kind of reinforced my own thoughts and beliefs and what I wanted to do with my own life. And so kind of it really spoke to me in that way.
Wow, that's such a beautiful, deep answer. Mine is like a Disney movie, probably.
Well, I mean, listen, Disney movies are cool too. I have daughters, so there's a lot of Disney movies I've seen over and over and over and over. But as for me, yeah, that Rushmore is fantastic. There's a lot of good Wes Anderson films out there, but that was the one that I thought was the very best, and
I'll
a
have to
great
add
soundtrack
it to
too.
the
If you just want to
list.
listen to the soundtrack alone, it's fantastic.
I love asking this question so that I can add things to my
Hmm,
movie
hmm.
and like TV show list as well. All right, I really like this question. Did you ever get away with something when you were younger and like nobody found out until later?
Oh, of course. I don't think you've lived a proper childhood unless
I was
that
such a goody two
happened.
shoes. Like I would tell my parents everything.
And that's probably for the best, Elizabeth, I would say. Yeah, there was one thing that I did. We couldn't afford stuff. So there was this one sporting goods store that I don't know if they have it anymore. I'm dating myself here, but there was a time where you could walk into the sporting goods store and they just had all the shoes, out.
Hmm.
You didn't have to ask somebody and them to go into the back and grab
Yeah,
that
like
type
a
of stuff.
sports
Yeah, it's just
authority.
all out there,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, cool, I'm gonna try these on. Oh, these look cool. You just put them back when you're done. So, but we they had Copa Mundials, which were like the boot to wear back in the day, and we couldn't afford them. My family couldn't afford them. And the first pair that I ever had, I wanted them so bad. I bought them used off of a teammate in high school. They had a big hole in the toe, but I just taped over them and I paid $40, which I thought that guy and his dad and his parents totally ripped us off, by the way, because that's like half
Yeah.
the price. But for like a big hole in the toe, like he wasn't gonna wear them again. Anyway, I'm still kind of bitter that he even charged us $40 for them.
Yeah, of
But
course.
that's what we could afford. So I ended up going to this sporting goods store, just kind of unbeknownst. I was just kind of looking around at what we could afford. But because the boxes were all different, I switched. I got a pair of Copa Mundials and put them in a $40 box and put the $40 shoes into the Copa Mundial box. And I went to go see if it worked. And I had in my mind, if it didn't work, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You just play the dumb card. But the people at the front don't give a shit. They're not looking. And even if they opened it up, they don't know what Copa Mundials are compared to something else. So I made sure to stay on brand. So like Adidas or Adidas, or however anybody says it. I made sure to still like the same brand box, but
Yeah.
hoping that and they didn't. And so I got a brand new pair of Copa Mundials for $40. And I never
Oh
told my
my
parents. Now,
god.
now some of you might think that is, what are you doing? You're a bad person. And other be like, that is the smartest goddamn thing I've ever heard. And I'm going to try that one day. I don't know where everybody stands, but
I
I
wouldn't have
figured
the
out a way
guts
to
to
get a brand
go,
new
but I
pair.
applaud you for trying
Well,
it.
and it worked. And it worked. What ended up happening was one of my friends tried it in a computer store with modems. And I told him this idea and he went in there and it took him so long. I went in to see what was going on. And then he switched the thing. He went big though. He went like got a $500 modem and put like $100 thing on there. And it took him so long that I went in and then we went to the register and it worked because honestly, the cash register people don't care. And then there was undercover police people and we both got arrested. So now I was under 18, so I got let go, but he was over 18, and they basically just intimidated him, and he didn't go, but they were threatening grand theft because it was over $250, or it
Oh
was
my
it was
god.
intense. Yeah. So there is a negative button to that story, but at the time that works. But be smart, everybody. But I didn't tell my parents and they didn't ask because I kind of always just kept my boots in a bag, right? So they never had to see them.
Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
So,
know if
but we
anybody
just
would
couldn't afford it. We were super paycheck to paycheck.
know.
All of our like vacations were around my soccer tournaments. And I didn't really know how much they were sacrificing at the time. You just kind of that was just the way it was. But looking back, I am I owe a great deal to my parents for sacrificing as much as they did.
Oh, yeah. I think like when you become an adult and you start doing these things, and you're like, wow, you
Hmm.
look at it with new eyes. Um, oh, okay. This is so cute. Moving along. I like this question a lot as well. I think you'll have a good answer. What is your most embarrassing moment from elementary school? Or maybe if you have like a middle or high school, that's fine too.
Yeah, so I used to pee my pants when I laughed too hard. Straight true story. I don't know. I just couldn't. If I got laughing, I would pee my pants. And so me and my buddies, like fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade, were goofing around, and something happened, and it was so funny. I peed my pants, and I didn't know what to say. Like they didn't notice it, but I obviously knew my pants were like drenched at this point. We're just laughing and laughing. So I was like, I got to figure out a way to solve this. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go run outside really quick. So I run outside before anybody can really notice that my pants are soaked, and I just get the hose out on front, and I just dump the hose over my whole body. And they're like,
You found a hose at the school?
no, this is at somebody's house. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're at somebody's house, after school, we're laughing, we're I don't know, video games or goofing around or whatever, and I just could not stop laughing, pee my pants, and run outside. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in full panic mode, but the bright idea came to me that like, well, what if I just soak myself
And
all
was it like
over?
a hot month?
What's that?
Was it a hot month? Like, was it the
It
summer?
was relatively hot, but I
Okay, so it's not
basically
like
like,
it's December and you're soaking it.
but I got
So
like pants on and I got like a full and shoes and sock. And
oh
so
my
I just
God.
go and just dump, like, just keep going with the hose. So I'm completely drenched. And they come outside, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, it's hot. It was just, they're like, it's not even that hot. I'm like, I don't know, I was just feeling hot, And so I was tap dancing for sure. And I don't know if they ever bought it, but I don't think they understood why I would do that anyway. Cause only one of my closest friends knew that I peed my pants when I laughed too hard. So he probably knew, but I don't think anybody else figured it out.
Oh, I, I yeah, that was brilliant. I don't have anything. I feel like
No,
I
no,
have.
no. I think moving on to the next one is probably the best
Yeah,
bet.
I don't have any. Like, I think I had a lot of embarrassing things happen, but I've like blocked them out from my memory because they're so embarrassing.
That's great.
Um, what's a hobby that you have that people might not know about?
Ooh, I like to play tennis.
Ooh.
I've picked up tennis. I have a friend who's better than me, which is good because it forces me to get better myself. Anytime he's losing, he plays to my backhand though, so that sucks because my backhand isn't very good. And then so instead of it being like, hey, he just knows how to play tennis. I'm a better athlete, but he knows how to play tennis. So that has been fun. Other hobbies, I love to coach. Of course, I'm getting my coaching badges. I don't know. That all kind of still feels like everybody kind of knows that already, or just would naturally assume that I would be doing something like that, or former players would do something like that. Uh, Outside of that, no, I don't really have. I mean, I'm a dad, so I just kind of all my hobbies are more dad centric, which are kind of probably
Aw.
boring for others. But we play a lot of Lego Star Wars video games, so that's fun.
That's very fun.
Yeah,
I always my whole like TikTok is just like baby videos because I just find them so adorable and
yeah,
cute.
of course.
Yeah, and I'm like, my husband's like, no, like a couple more years. Like, I'm like, yeah, I know.
In
But
time, in time.
very cute. What is one thing that you cannot live without?
Well, it's easy to say my loved ones, my wife, and my kids, and all that stuff. Outside of like the obvious,
Yeah, outside of the office.
I would say a ball. I need to have a ball. I need to kick a ball. I need to. It's a great way for me, even though I don't play professionally anymore. I still try to kick the ball around with a bunch of old guys in my area, and there's just something cathartic about kicking a ball around, and it gives me peace. So if there's anything crazy going on in my life, there's always a lot of chaos. Being able to kick a ball up against a wall, being able to kick a ball with somebody else is really important for my balance in life. And if
Mhm.
I didn't have a ball, I think I'd get really anxious and stress and not really understand why until I started kicking the ball around, and then I'd relax again. So I think
Oh,
a ball is something I probably couldn't live without.
really interesting one. For me, it's my pillow.
That's fair.
I have a very
That's
specific
fair.
pillow
I
that I
like that
use
one.
that my mom gave all of
Hmm.
me and my siblings like years and years ago, and it's like the cylinder pillow, and it's so comfortable. Like I use it every single night, and I like bring it on vacation and everything because I like cannot sleep without it.
I love that. I love that.
Thanks. Okay, so would you rather travel back to the past or travel to the future? And then what like time period would you go to? Going
Wow,
right.
that's a great question. I think that, I mean, the future seems a little bit daunting in some capacity. I kind of don't know if I want to know what the ending is. Not just for me individually, but just collectively as a human race. So I think that going back and exploring some things, maybe even in an era where I got to see my grandparents when they were younger,
Mhm.
that kind of
Yeah,
space, I think would be
same.
kind of cool. So that's a great question though. I think the 60s would be a really interesting decade to live through. Um, maybe the cusp of the industrial age here in the US. If I don't know if I get to go back and just be a witness or actually go back and have some influence. Be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not let's why don't we treat women with respect right from the get go?
Yeah,
How
that's
about
it.
can we rewrite now the Constitution? You know,
Yeah.
um, this whole Second Amendment gun control thing, we got to get that solved because let me tell you, in the future,
That's
it's a
Christmas.
fucking disaster.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, this slavery is we that should just let's eliminate that from the get go and just treat
Yeah,
everybody with
that's just not.
respect.
Yeah.
So there's so many though, like I would if I could have influence and be like, listen, I'm going to solve a lot of social issues, and it's just because you guys need to treat everybody with respect, no matter what they look like or what gender they are. And being progressive right from the get go, I think even they probably thought they were being progressive, but let's take like 50 more steps and really get ahead
Mhm.
of it. I think would help alleviate some of the stuff we're going through now. So that would be cool.
That would be very cool. And I would think like going back to like the 50s, 60s, like you
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
getting to meet my grandparents when they were young. But I think about that like, oh, being a woman in that time must have been really
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Or you know what? Seeing Pelé, back in the day, just to see, oh, I've seen what the game looks like in the modern game. Do I think he could do it?
mhm.
Seeing George Best play live would have been sick. Seeing some of the great players, if we're talking just football related, would be back in the day, just to see how good they were back then, would have been pretty sweet.
Cool. Another random one. What is your most used emoji?
Probably the laughing with the tears
I
kind of
could see
thing. Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, that pretty much fits my personality.
It does. I think mine is a blue heart, like for
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, for
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have traveled the world, so I've had the opportunity to digest some interesting cuisines. I would say I had some cow tongue, but I can't remember. I think it
Mhm.
might have been in Argentina. Um, and I think we went to I can't remember what they call their barbecues, but they
Oh, yeah,
basically
talking
they
about.
chopped up every piece of the animal possible, and they were just trying to like, you want to try the cow tongue kind of thing and peer pressure. So that's it wasn't great. I'll just say that. It
In,
wasn't great. Yeah, yeah. But hey, everybody's
in
got to do
Madrid,
what they got to
there's
do.
a super common dish called callos, and
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
is cow's like stomach lining type
Yeah, yeah.
thing. And
We
my
got no time
husband's
for that.
obsessed with it, and
Yeah,
I tried it, and it's just like so chewy,
yeah.
like very collagen-y. Yeah, but here, that's one of the things I noticed like most about living here is like in the grocery store there is a lot of variety. And yesterday, it was the other day, I saw like some really weird stuff in the grocery store, and you can get like
Yeah.
hearts, you can get
Yeah.
kidneys, you can get rabbits.
I'm a vegetarian now, so and have been for about
Interesting.
6 or 7 years. So I'm happy to not have to dabble in any type of meat-based
Yeah,
stuff anymore.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't eat. I eat red meat like every once in a
Mhm,
while, but
mhm.
yeah, cool. Which of the seven dwarfs most describes you?
Ooh.
And
Is there a happy dwarf?
there is a happy dwarf,
I'll
and
go
just so
happy.
everybody knows, in case somebody has not seen Snow White, it's
Yes.
happy, dark, grumpy, dopey, bashful, sleepy, and sneezy.
Probably happy.
I could say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. Yeah, and there's time to process sadness and grief, and that's part of the journey of being a human. But I try to look forward and find silver linings. So I'd say happy is probably my best
No,
one.
nice. And finally, last question, and I'm totally putting you on the spot here, but do you know any like funny jokes, like funny dad joke?
Oh, yes, yes. I got a great one for you.
I felt like you would,
I
so
mean,
that's
I
the best
yes,
thing.
being a dad, I got to have a couple ready to go. So, how come witches can't have babies?
I don't know how come.
Because their husbands have Halloweenies. It's terrible, isn't it? So bad.
Like, how'd
But
you find this?
yeah, I don't
It's
that that one got told to my dad a long, long time ago. But yeah, that stuck
beautiful.
with me. It's so bad that I've remembered it for the rest of my life.
Amazing. Well, Jimmy Conrad, that has been 20 questions. Thank you so, so, so much for joining. I had a lot of fun as always. And yeah, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me at Jimmy Conrad, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, the Jimmy Conrad on YouTube, though I haven't posted in a while, and I apologize to my community. It's called Burnout every once in a while, and I think that's all the platforms. TikTok at Jimmy Conrad as well, even though I haven't posted there in a while, but there's still some funny ones that hold
Your
up. You can still
TikTok
go enjoy
was
those.
blowing up when you did post on it. It was fantastic.
I did. You know what? Honestly, I got to 50,000 followers. This is my flex, I guess, but I got to
How
50,000.
cool.
I was like, I proved what I needed to prove here, that I could build an audience quickly and that people like the ones I'm putting out. It just was a lot of work. And as you know, to have a presence on Insta and TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and all these platforms, it's exhausting. And
Yeah,
so something
it
has to
is.
give at some point. And as you do at some point, and I have a family, I have to go to where I'm getting paid, and so sometimes the places, even though I'm having a ton of fun getting, making free content and being super creative in certain spaces, I still have to, pay house bills and put food on the table and all that. So sometimes those fun things have to get sacrificed for the real life stuff. That's part of being a dad, and being one that cares about making sure they're taking care of their family.
Aw. Wow, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of 20 Questions. Make sure to follow Jimmy. Make sure to
Do
like
it.
this video, sub to the channel. This will
Sub,
be
turn
it
on your
throughout the
notifications,
entire
hit like and
season.
subscribe.
Yeah, you guys know it. You know the drill. Hope you had a great time watching this, whatever time of the day you are. And until next time, I'm out. Bye.